Hi, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com. Today we're going to make a delicious lemon frosted lemon pound cake. This cake is sweet and buttery and has a really nice lemon flavor. And like all pound cakes, it is wonderfully moist and dense. So the first thing we need to do is preheat our ovens to 350 degrees Fahrenheit, which is 180 degrees Celsius. And then we need a 9-inch, that's 23 centimeter, spring-form pan. Now, spring-form pan comes in two pieces. You got the bottom plate, and then you just take that, put it inside, and then there's a clamp on the side. You just clamp that down. And then you can either butter the pan, or I'm just spraying it with one of these non-stick sprays, just bottom and the sides. And then take a round piece of parchment paper, or you could use wax paper, and just put it in the bottom of the pan. Now, if you don't have a spring-form pan, you could just use a regular 9-inch, 23 centimeter cake pan, but just make sure it's one that has pretty high sides. So that's done. So now, to make the batter, if you have an electric stand mixer like I do here, use the paddle attachment, or you could just as easily use an electric hand mixer for this as well. And to start, we need 1 cup, that's 225 grams of butter. Now make sure that's at room temperature, so when you press it, it gives a little. And I like to use unsalted butter. I prefer the flavor. But you could use salted butter. Just, if you're going to use salted butter, then leave out the salt in the recipe. So the first thing we're going to do is just beat the butter just until it's nice and smooth, like maybe a minute or so. Okay. And then just scrape down the sides and the bottom of your bowl. And then next, we're going to add 1 cup, that's 200 grams of granulated white sugar. And then we're going to beat this on medium-high speed until it's really light and fluffy and quite pale in color. And a few times I would stop the mixer and scrape down the sides and the bottom of the bowl just to make sure everything gets really mixed together. Okay, so this is what we're looking for. It's really nice and soft, nice pale color, fluffy. We want to get some air into that butter and sugar. So I'm just going to scrape down the sides again. And then we're going to add 1 teaspoon of pure vanilla extract. Try to use the pure vanilla extract. It has a lot better flavor than the imitation ones. And then we're going to add 4 large eggs. Now have those at room temperature. And we're going to add them one at a time. Beat one in, and then the next one, and the next one, and the next one. And then scrape down the sides as you need to. And you will notice at the end that the batter will look a little curdled. So don't worry about that, because once we add the flour, that will all smooth out. So I'm going to add 1 egg. And as you can see, a lot of times what people do is they crack their egg on the side of the bowl and then put it in. The problem with that is you can get a little bit of shell in your batter, which we don't want. So always crack your eggs into a separate little bowl and then put it into your batter. Again, scrape down the sides. I want to make sure everything gets mixed together. And as you can see, this batter does look quite curdled. So it's a lot of eggs and butter in there, so. But it will smooth out really nicely. Okay, so now for our dry ingredients. So in a separate bowl, I have 2 cups, that's 260 grams of white all-purpose flour. You may know that as a plain flour. And to that, I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. And that will give the, lighten the cake a bit and help it get some height. Because typically, pound cakes in the old days, they were made with, why the name pound cake is 1 pound of each of butter, sugar, eggs, and flour. Problem with that is that the cakes were quite heavy. So now we kind of play a little with those proportions and then add a little baking powder and a little liquid to kind of lighten that texture up a bit. And then I'm also adding a 1/4 teaspoon of salt. I'm using kosher salt. Now, like I said, if you use salted butter, I would leave out that salt. And then what you need is the zest, which is the outer yellow skin of 1 lemon. Make sure you wash your lemon thoroughly before you take the skin. And you want to make sure you just get the yellow part, not the white underneath, because the white is quite bitter. And you can use one of these graters, hand graters, or just one of those box ones on the smallest setting. And just grate it. Now there's a lot of flavor in the outer skin of a lemon. So that's why we're using that. And we will be using the juice as well. But a lot of the flavor is in the skin. Now, if you wanted to make this into a orange cake, you could just substitute orange zest for the lemon. And then we are using some lemon juice. You could just use the orange juice. If you would like to make this into a lemon poppy seed pound cake, you could add 2-3 tablespoons of poppy seeds. So then, I'm just going to whisk this together. You could sift it. And then you will also need a 1/4 cup, that's 60 milliliters of fresh lemon juice. And I did strain that to get rid of all the seeds. Now what I'm going to do is add the flour in 3 additions and alternate that with adding the lemon juice in 2 additions. So just add about 1/3 of your flour mixture and have that on low speed because you don't want that flour coming up in your face. And then add half of your lemon juice. Don't overmix it, just mix it until it's incorporated. Add a little more of the flour. And scrape down. You want to make sure that all gets mixed in. And the rest of the flour. Okay, and we're done. Really smell the lemon in the kitchen here. Okay, make sure all that flour's mixed in, and then just pour it into your pan. Now, because this is a pound cake, we don't get a lot of rise. It's not like a butter cake where it really puffs up. You get a little, but not a lot. Okay, and then just with the back of a spoon, or I'm just using an offset spatula here, just even this out as best as you can. It's really nice how you have the little flecks of the lemon zest in the batter. Okay, so into the oven. somewhere between, you know, depending on your oven, everyone's is different, between 40 and 50 minutes, or until it's nicely brown and a toothpick inserted into the center just comes out clean. Okay, our lemon pound cake is now done. As you can see, it's a really nice golden color. There is some cracking that's perfectly normal with a pound cake, so don't worry if yours cracks as well. And what you want to do is make sure you take a toothpick, or I've got a little bamboo skewer here, and just put it into the cake and make sure that it comes out clean. So now what we're going to do is just let this cool for maybe about 15 minutes or so, and then we'll start the lemon frosting. So now we want to remove our cake from the pan. So just take where the clamp is, unclamp that, and then, so. And then we want to remove the bottom plate. So just flip the cake over. Let's remove that. And then just peel off your paper. Now, if you wanted a really flat bottom cake, you could put the frosting on the bottom of the cake instead of the top. But we're going to frost the top, so flip it back over. And there we go. So for the frosting, which is really a lemon glaze, really simple to make, you need 1 cup of confectioner's sugar. You may know that as powdered or icing, which is about 115 grams. And I did sift it because powdered sugar has a tendency to have a lot of lumps. And then to that, you need lemon juice. We need about 2 tablespoons, and make sure you strain that to get rid of any of the pulp or the seeds. And then just in a small bowl, you will need about 2 tablespoons. Have a little extra sugar on hand as well as the lemon juice, because you may have to play a bit with it to get the right consistency. And then you can just use a spoon, or I'm just using a little whisk here. Mix them together. Now we want this a pouring consistency because we want to be able to pour it and it kind of drips down the sides a little. So that's why we may have to add a little more liquid or sugar, depending. It looks like I'm going to have to add a little more liquid to this. That's why you want to have a little extra on hand. And just stir it to get a nice smooth glaze. Switch over to a spoon here. Okay, that's still a little thick, so just add a little more. Now, of course, if you like lots of frosting, you could double this recipe. It does make the cake really nice and moist and keeps it fresh. So that's looking good. I think I'm just going to let just a touch. As you can see, you just got to play with this a little. Okay, I think that's good. I'm going to go with that. Now, this cake is a little warm. So when I put this on, it's going to, some of it will soak in. But if you don't want it to soak in at all, let this cool completely. And this will dry to kind of a hard and crusty glaze. It's really nice. So just pour it on, like so. And just take a spoon or a spatula here and just kind of I said, if you like lots of frosting, then just double the recipe. I just like a nice light glaze. Isn't that pretty? It's nice and shiny. Now this cake, let the icing dry completely before covering and storing. It will last like quite a few days at room temperature. If you have leftovers, this would be great to make a trifle. It's really wonderful, moist and sweet. Okay, so just let that sit, let it dry, and then you can cover and store it for several days. So until next time, I'm Stephanie Jaworski of joybaking.com.